Imagine that you're a child who's playing outside your school building. You take a few minutes to run up to that towering peepal tree that's in the center of your school courtyard. You look up at it carefully. You admire the fresh copper-colored leaves that have just emerged. And you take out a folded card from your pocket and you write something down on it. Or suppose you are out on your morning walk. And as you're walking along, you spot a chameleon trying to cross the road. You take out your phone, open an app, take a couple of photos from 2 different angles, press a button, and then of course wait until the chameleon has safely crossed to the other side. Or imagine that you're doing the most touristy thing possible in India, which is to go and visit the Taj Mahal in Agra. And as you're walking around, admiring the architecture and the devotion that inspired it, you also keep an eye and an ear out for the birds around you. There's 10 green parakeets rocketing through the sky, screeching loudly. Or at the banks of the Yamuna, there are 3 storks, which you can see if you walk around the back of the Taj. The child is taking part in a school project. The walker is taking photos of something that's interesting, and the bird watcher is engaging in a hobby that she loves. But at the same time, all 3 of them are also contributing to science. They are adding an understanding, adding to our understanding of the natural world around us. And how is this possible? We think of science as something that is done by a special group of people dressed in white lab coats. They have PhDs. They use jargon that the rest of us don't understand. They have special tools like electron microscopes or DNA sequencing machines or particle accelerators. But there's a new movement that's sweeping through India and the world, which is where professional researchers team up with ordinary citizens like you and me to tackle questions that otherwise would have been unanswerable. So some examples include the space agency, NASA. They have several programs where they invite amateur astronomers, enthusiasts, to help them search for a possible planet 9 beyond Neptune, or to map clouds on Mars. At the other end of the spectrum of size is a computer game called Fold It, in which teams of gamers compete to design new protein molecules that can do new things. And in my field of nature, biodiversity, conservation, this new approach is allowing us to tackle questions that were unimaginable before. Now, all of you know that the world is changing rapidly. We're all familiar with climate and the fact that the climate is changing faster than it has ever before. But there are many other changes that are as grave for the wild species around us. Habitats are being altered or completely converted. Waterways are being dammed. Water flows are being reduced and diverted. The use of pesticides and other agricultural inputs is increasing year by year. And various kinds of pollutants get into our lakes, our rivers, and our oceans. So what are the consequences of all these changes for the wild plants and animals around us? Which are the ones that are the worst affected? Where should we prioritize our conservation efforts? These are questions that many scientists ask, but the answers are actually quite hard to find. And this is where you and I come in. By joining hands with other like-minded people, we can create a ripple effect, and we can help answer these questions that are otherwise impossible or very difficult to answer. So let me take an example of seasonality. In temperate regions of the world, we know that the flowers that emerge after winter are coming out weeks earlier than they used to 100 years ago as the planet warms. And similar things are happening with leaves and fruit as well. Now, of course, you might ask, why does this matter? Well, it's because plants are the only creatures that can convert, almost like magic, sunlight and carbon dioxide and water into living stuff. And all the rest of us, therefore, depend on plants for our food, either directly or indirectly through animals that eat them. And so, any change in the behavior of plants is extremely important for us indeed, and we need to understand it. Now, we've talked about what happens in temperate regions, but what happens in the tropics where we are? This is far less understood. Perhaps seasonality in the tropics is driven more by rainfall than by temperature. And this is where a citizen science project like SeasonWatch comes in. By working with schools and colleges and individual people all across the country, SeasonWatch tracks the leafing, flowering, and fruiting and how it's changing over years and over decades. And all you need to do to participate in this is just to go out to your nearest tree, make friends with it, visit your friend once a week, and note down its leaves, flowers, and fruits. So, over the course of the years, SeasonWatch has accumulated 800,000 observations of individual trees, over 10,000 trees contributed by thousands of school children, college students, and individual people. And from this store of information, some new insights are emerging, new patterns. For example, the Indian laburnum tree, or amaltash, with its massive drooping yellow flowers. In Kerala, the flowering of this tree is supposed to happen in March, April, and May. But the SeasonWatch information shows that now flowering is spread more or less throughout the year entirely. And what consequences this might have for the ecosystem as a whole remains to be investigated. And it's quite possible that other trees are also showing these sorts of changes in seasonality. So that was one example. Another group of people that are contributing a lot to this new movement are those whose hobby it is to watch birds. So bird watchers go out, they search for birds, and they make a list of all the bird species that they see or they hear. And they might do this right around their home every day, like I do, or they might travel long distances to watch and to photograph birds. When I was young, we used to write down all these observations on pen and paper, but now, as with everything, there's an app for that. And so these observations now live on web-based platforms that anybody across the world can see and learn from. One of the most popular apps like this is called eBird, and in India, some 50,000 bird watchers so far have contributed 60 million observations of birds from every corner of the country. This is a vast database of information, much bigger than anything that was available before. And this massive database of information is now again yielding new insights and patterns that we didn't know earlier. For example, there are some migratory species which spend, almost their entire population spends the winter here in India, which means that we are the custodians of the entire global population of these species for half the year. Or we found that some Himalayan birds are being forced to move to higher and higher elevations as the climate warms. And we've also seen that a large fraction of the bird species in India are declining in their abundance. And I'll say a little more about that. Last year, there was a report called The State of India's Birds, which assessed the conservation status of nearly 1,000 Indian bird species based on the information contributed by bird watchers from across the country. Out of these, there was enough data to assess the long-term trends of 338 species. And of those species, 60% showed clear signs of decline over the last 25 years. And only 10% showed an increase. Now, some examples of these declines are, one very well-known example is that of vultures, which, as you know, get poisoned if they feed on the carcasses of cattle that had been fed veterinary diclofenac before death. That's a well-known example. But there are other signs of decline in species that were not suspected. For example, the beautiful Indian roller, a beautiful blue bird, which is a bird of countryside and agriculture. And this is declining rapidly as well, most likely because of extensive habitat change and perhaps because of pesticide poisoning as well. And among the handful of species that are increasing include our majestic national bird, the Indian peafowl. And they are increasing in abundance where they are, and they're increasing in their distribution, most likely because of strict protection, as well as changing climate, which has enabled them to go into regions that were earlier too wet or too cold for them. So this is an example of how the people coming together can make a difference. In this new movement, the wonderful thing about it is that anybody can participate. So whether you are, no matter where you are or who you are, you can contribute. If you're stuck indoors, for example, you can help find new celestial bodies, or you can play protein folding games on your laptop or computer. If you like the outdoors, you can snap photos of butterflies or spiders or flowers and contribute them to online databases like iNaturalist or the India Biodiversity portal. Or if you have a specific interest, like with birds, then your lists and observations can contribute to their conservation. So my intention here is not to tell you about all the specific new results that we have been able to find using these efforts, but rather to illustrate to you the power of what happens when people come together, the ripple effect. So this is an open call and invitation to everyone over here. Join the effort, work together with like-minded people, and help collectively understand and monitor and conserve our amazing, beautiful, and vitally important natural world. Thank you.